Dude, so the
Keep-
next one I like to,
I'd like to touch on this one.
which one?
Spiritual.
Spiritual. Okay. This is a tough one for me. Um, and I don't know why.
Let me ask, did you grow up in a
Catholicism, man. It was just so
Catholic household? Did
boring.
you go to Catholic school? Did you do Sunday school?
I did. I did. I got all the way up to first communion and I never did my confirmation or whatever. And
Okay. Yeah.
again, like now it's like early on, I like kind of felt like it was kind of bullshitty in a sense.
Yeah.
But now as I'm getting older and I've gone through these slight little like nihilistic spots where,
Oh,
you know,
you're a Friedrich Nietzsche kind of guy.
yeah, yeah, right. Where, and I'm like, oh, like my cousin talked about it. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Like a couple years ago. And then I'm like, oh shit, now I'm going through the same thing. And what I'm starting to understand is like that bigger sense of purpose is what spiritual things can likely do.
It is, yeah.
You
I
know,
think
yeah,
I
right.
would like to talk about this a little bit. Like, I'm first off, I'm gonna categorize a few things. I'm almost gonna sound like Jordan Peterson for y'all. I'm gonna really define a lot of things here. So
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
All
This
right.
might be so. There's religion,
Mhm,
and then there's ways of living, and there's philosophies of living.
mhm,
Um, I think spiritual and religious don't have to be in the same context. I really don't think they have to be. And I know that sounds weird, but I'm Christian in nature, but my philosophies on life might be different than what that religion is. They might be hand in hand, right? I may be religious because I go to Sunday school or I go to Sunday mass. I might pray to God. And for the people that listening, whatever your religion is, whether you're Catholic, you're Jewish, or you're, atheist, like whatever it is, like there still could be a spiritual component, right? Understanding that you are one minuscule piece to a bigger puzzle. That's a great way to understand spirituality. And you could do spirituality in many ways. You know, Spirituality could just be, again, we talk about environmental, just being one with nature. Spiritual could just be breath work practices. It could be anything that keeps you and your spirits high, I guess. One thing I also like to say is, philosophy. Philosophy is a really great way of thinking about this. But like you're talking about being a nihilist, like if it wasn't for kinesiology, I would have been a philosopher. But what does sitting around thinking do? What kind of money does that get you? I don't know. Anyways,
mhm.
you just got to be a philosophy lecturer, I guess. But I
Yeah.
went deep into nihilism. I went deep into objectivism. I went deep into Aristotelian. I went deep into a lot of things, and I looked at the Greeks. I looked at the Tao. I've looked at Eastern, Western. I've looked at Russian literature. I've looked at it all. I love philosophy. It's great. But philosophy is a philosophy. It's a way of thought. It's a modem of thinking. It's modus operandi. It's maybe like your North Star. Doesn't mean your religion either. It doesn't even mean your spirituality. It's just the way you think. It's just like a logical thing. So I think a lot of people might mix those things up. So I
I
just
like
wanted to find that first,
and I like that. I think you're right. I think again, a lot of the times when it comes to like other people's I'm a math guy. I'm very axiomatic. I need to know the definitions of shit, right? So like as soon as
Yeah.
we say something, I actually went back. I was like, I'm gonna Google nihilist real quick. It's like I don't believe that all things in life are meaningless, but I was starting to get to the point where I was like, what's the point? So
Well,
sort of,
nihilism start. Friedrich Nietzsche was really the big one started, but it wasn't necessarily what's the point of life.
yeah.
It
As
was
much as
God
like
is dead.
everything is just meaningless. Yeah, like reject
It
everything.
was more like God is dead, and then like what is the meaning?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
so
I guess like I kind of was like feeling like, oh, I guess everything's kind of meaningless was the point, right? And then finding a spiritual practice, like you said, not related to religion per se, but like the belief in something higher, something
yeah,
better, right? And it's really not something that you just mark off the to-do list, right? You're actively practicing things that you want to seek out daily, things that help you create like groundedness and peace in your own
mhm,
health, right? Um, and as a result, I think the biggest thing that's helped me recently is this idea, again, in math, for example, you deal with things in the higher power, literally, right? Like we take something to an exponential power and you literally can't see it, but it's mathematically sound, right? It makes sense, right? You can prove it on paper with all the math rules. And it's this idea and belief that you have to believe in these basic principles to help be the guiding principle in life. So literally, at the highest end of philosophy and the highest end of math, they're like this.
They're the same thing. Everything
They're the same
comes,
thing.
yeah.
It all goes down to the idea of a sound or a logical argument, right? Something could be sound, but it's not logical, and it could be logical and not sound, and it could be not both, or it could be both, right?
Dude, I remember doing logics answers for like 8 hours straight. Yes.
But
But no,
I love that thought though, because me, the math guy, didn't think that they would lead to some higher principles that would intersect at that highest level. And once there was a system to understand things, it started to make a whole lot more sense to me. And even now, like I look back at that, like we can't see the fourth dimension, right? But like we constantly are obsessed with it in movies, and they're trying to like represent it in a way that could make sense, that we could
that
wrap
can
our
make
head around,
sense. Yeah. I
right?
think,
Interstellar, that idea.
yeah, I
So
like the concept that you're saying there, like being something so exponential and so big. I think for me, a spiritual practice that I practice, like it's not necessarily like a spiritual thing, like I put on my calendar, spiritual practice, like, but like hikes, or seeing like a big view. Like
yep.
for example, I love going to Yosemite or like going to like Zion or something.
Oh yeah.
And when you
Nature.
just see the vastness of nature and you just look at how big, when you do that tunnel from the south side, I think, of Yosemite, and you come in and you just see the canyon, and
Mhm.
especially if it's a good day and you just stop the car and pull over and just look, you just can't like not feel like bliss. Like you just can't not feel it. Like you were in this world, and like again, I practice Christianity, so take it as it is. But like, man, God made this,
Mhm.
and you just have to be in awe of it. And you are so small. And I think that's one way I practice spirituality. I think when I feel small, like in that way, like small in a good way, like that, like it compared to the vastness of this world, the universe, or just where I'm at, my spirituality is very high. I think that's one way I practice it. I do prayer and other things, but like that's a significant one that I like for sure.
Dude, that was deep. I agree. I mean, sometimes you literally cannot capture the vastness of the land. And even on my walk yesterday morning, we have these clouds rolling in, you know, in Vegas, very uncommon, right? And it's
What?
over it's like looming, it's over the strip, and there's like a light drizzle. Call it a Vegas shower because that's what it was. um, the moment itself transcended what I could capture on my phone. I'm just like,
Yeah, I saw that.
I
Right.
was
Yeah.
like, I wish I could capture how I feel right now. And a lot of the times I was like, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I was like, this photo is trash. I'm already acknowledging it. Cause if I could get the picture of this landscape that again, like is a combination of nature's beauty and man-made fucking architecture that the strip is, it's just like it was
It's
like that moment.
insane.
It's kind of incomprehensible, right? You're like, man, we built these massive buildings in the middle of a desert. We live here. There's AC. There's all these things, and it was like a state of bliss. I was like, man, and if I wasn't out there in the outside, I would never have captured that moment. So again,
Yeah.
like maybe that is my new spiritual practice is walking out there in
Yeah.
nature,
And
seeing things
and
that people are building.
tying it back to what you're saying and tying it back to what I said, we were talking about depression at the beginning. That might
Yeah.
be that might be something, dude. Honestly, I don't know. Being in nature and seeing like a grand view,
Hmm.
see how that feels with depression if you're dealing with something like that. Like, I don't know, like, if you're trying to find a way that like depression isn't serving you anymore, and you're like, I'm kind of tired of this feeling, do something like that. Like, go to a grand view and see how that makes you feel, and hopefully that helps. But I want to move to the next one. I think we'll go with environmental because we were kind of just talking about spiritual with nature side. That makes sense. And we'll finish up with financial here.
Yeah.
Environmental. So I don't know the exact Google definition of environmental, but I think it's like being respectful of nature, making sure that your environment is as healthy as it possibly can, but your living environment, cleanliness, and then also like your like surrounding environment, not just your home, but like
Yeah.
if you recycle, if you pick up trash, if I don't know the exact meaning of it, Marcos, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah, like it could be air quality, food sources, the quality of your water sources, chemical exposure, how you choose to have your cleaners in your life. Do you use vinegar? Do you use a natural one? What do you seek out?
Yeah,
What are your beauty products look like? Do you microwave in plastic? Do you microwave only in glass? Do you only heat things on the stove, right? Whatever it is your day-to-day choices of like things that are constantly around you have to, again, like that's your environmental consciousness, right?
yeah.
And a lot of those things could, potentially have deleterious effects on your respiratory system, your endocrine system, your reproductive system.
Did
All
y'all
of these.
know plastics are in our DNA by 0.0000017 picograms?
It's very small, picogram.
Yeah.
And again, like so it's everything, right? Like again, my environment changed massively when my mom got cancer almost 20
Mm,
years ago,
mm,
right? Literally, the landscape of our food in our pantry overnight, organic everything before organic was cool. And that is the environment I then grew up in. And again, it's the environment that even my kids are kind of, accustomed to at this point. My mom's like, "Oh man, I'm worried about what the kids are going to eat when you guys are going on your vacation this weekend." I'm like, "Just feed them real food. They'll eat that. They literally that's all they really care about. Like the other stuff is kind of fun and they like it as a reward, but like more often than not, the things they actually can consume are actually high in nutritional value."
yeah. It's hard. This one is a hard one. Other than like, there's been a lot of data coming out on this, and man, I wish we could go over more. Like,
But you get to choose where you live, though, right? Like
yeah, you
your
get to choose where you live. You do.
Yeah.
Not just your surrounding neighborhood. Like, like, hey, did I decide instead of Amazon, did I buy that Pyrex glass instead of the buy the plastic, or did I drink out of a plastic bottle today, or bring my metal tin with me, or hey, did I use a soap cleanser? Like, I think you can control a lot of those factors. I
Mhm.
want to talk about, man, this is a hard one. Sourced food that's such a hard topic now because, man, there's companies and there's documentaries out there and stuff like that, and I don't know the whole conspiracy thing and how documentaries want to like, you know, um, paint big companies as things. But remember, these big companies have to. What these big companies are doing is like they're trying to feed like a whole nation, right? Um, it's hard because I think in our day to day in the world we have more calories now, but we are nutriently like not as dense as we were before. Um, it's hard, but like where you source your foods could be a thing. Like how your food is sourced could be a thing. What hormones are treated in your foods? Are your chickens doing like meat, or are they doing grains? How about your cows? Are they grass fed or are they grain fed? And then what hormones are in there? And um, there's so much there, right, Marcos? Like the environment that you decide, like when you decide to buy. I just listened to a big podcast. I forgot his name, but they're talking about this right here, what we're recording on the phone, our camera, like um, anything with a anything with a rechargeable battery, like the cobalt mines and all these things. So, yeah, like it's just wild, just wild. So, yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. So let's finish here. What are your thoughts on that? And then finish here with financial.
Yeah, well, I added the last 3 to the 10 because I know we've been like in live fashion adding some stuff, but we kind of covered some of the other stuff. I think environmentally, I think you hit it on the head there. We get to choose that environment. We get to choose our surroundings. You get to choose the things that are cues to yourself, right? And
Mhm.
that is obviously important for health. I mean, it's a conversation with everybody all the time. And again, even setting your shoes out the night before, all of James Clear, right? To make sure that you can then see that first thing in the morning makes yourself easier. Dude, I mean, night and day difference of like the nights that I literally make my pre-workout stuff and shake it up and put it in my fridge. That saves me 5 minutes in the morning because I'm fucking sluggish, right? at 4:30. And that's my environment. If I know better, it's just getting into that habit though that's hard.
Yeah.
So environment is that. Financial is an interesting one though, right? Because this is one that
Yeah.
makes the world go round, right? This involves spending, saving, budgeting, right? Knowing our resources. How do we make more money essentially, right? And how do we experience peace and security knowing how we're spending our money, how we're investing, and how we're, saving it, right? So,
Yeah. I
um,
think this is a good one to kind of end off. And I know the last three are like financial, occupation, and purpose.
mhm.
But I think we'll tie it in with occupation, purpose, and all that, because we talked about nutritional
Yeah, I mean that's the whole
throughout
thing,
this whole thing. So we'll
right?
kind
Yeah,
of finish it up here, and we'll kind of hit all 10.
yeah,
Um, you know, I'm gonna tie two, occupation and finance together. You are you earn what kind of value you bring to this world.
yeah.
So basically, I know this sounds kind of weird, but if you're doing a job and let's say you're making $60,000 a year, that's the average American income, somewhere around there, you are your value to the world is of that average American income, right? If you're doing more, your value to the world is of that income. And I know that sounds kind of hard to say, but it's like, for example, if you didn't get a promotion, you can blame others and say, I didn't get that promotion. I know how this feels because I was there. But what you can say is, okay, what did I not have in terms of skill sets, mindsets, beliefs, traits, certain credentials that needed me to get this promotion, right?
Yeah.
Right. So maybe I need to elevate myself so that I am worthy of this position. Maybe that 60K is supposed to be at 100K. I believe that, but maybe I'm lacking in the skills. I'm lacking in the traits. So now you have to build those up to then be of value at 100K than you were at 60K.
Do you
You
think
know,
that that's based on purely education, or does work experience actually help you more?
I'm going to be honest with you. And this is hard because this is a tough conversation, but COVID was a great example of this. But like people started realizing like the college system
Hmm.
in COVID, people were more entrepreneurial during COVID than they were in any time for a long time. Brought a lot of entrepreneurs out because they had to. Like that urgency had to. And I don't think you can teach urgency to anyone. I think that's situational, and I think that like that depends on the person. It did for me for sure. Yeah, I have a college background, but there's people that have no college backgrounds that make way more than me because they were just so urgent and said no to the situation they were in and decided like, hey, I'm doing this. I know I am worth this. I'm going to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Some people are more entrepreneurial in their endeavors, and they have that because they have risk tolerance or risk averseness. And maybe they had the work experience to realize, oh, I worked in this field. I can do it better. And I've seen that, right? Or you have people, and nothing wrong with being an employee or staff, but like if you're an employee and staff and you like where you're at, then that is what your financial and your occupation is, and that's maybe where you're at. And hey, again, nothing wrong with that. Like that's just where you're at, and maybe that might be a cap salary compared to someone that's more entrepreneurial that
Yeah.
we've found to happen in COVID and stuff. So
And I think that that's super important. That, like, I mean, the cap is purely existing in your head, right? But like you just said, if you're making the average and then you're like, oh my god, I should be getting a raise. I should be just like, well, what are you doing outside of the scope of your normal day? Right? Like your normal tasks. Can you handle those other things? Are you just going and doing them just cuz?
yeah.
Right? Hard work doesn't go unnoticed. People
Uh,
around you will then be like, "Oh, we can depend on you to do X, Y, and Z on top of X, like A, B, and C," right? And then it leads to, like, again, that satisfaction of like, "Hey, like I like chasing these new little things in my occupation because I do like that job. I didn't fall into that fallacy you mentioned earlier, where you sunk in so much time. Did you say, the sunk time fallacy or the
yeah,
sunk?
sunk cost fallacy. Like you put in so much time and you're like, I should just double down on this, but maybe it wouldn't have been a wiser idea to switch like my friend did, which
Yeah,
worked for him.
but that's the thing is, though, is like your experiences, no matter what it is educating you on what you don't want to do, right? So in
Yeah.
that occupation, and then the next one, when the opportunity comes, you might just take it. And shoot, I can attest to this wholeheartedly. Made a difference in the last year for me because
Oh,
I'm
it's made a big difference for me in the last year. I mean, I don't want to use myself as an example. I'll use like a client as an example.
you can use yourself.
Um,
It's okay. You can,
I,
and it
I,
can,
I can do it, but I'll
yeah,
toot
yeah,
my own horn later. But like, I want to use my client because she and her husband, one of them, I think she was like a secretary, and her husband was, I don't know what he was doing exactly, but his work dropped a lot to the
mhm.
point where I don't think he was working as much during COVID. So what they did was they created a
And OnlyFans.
well, that would have been, they would have been millionaires by now probably, but
Kidding.
millionaires overnight now with OnlyFans. Shit, if you look good,
Uh,
I'm kind of thinking like, do my feet look good?
Sarah Silverman on that commercial talking about it. I was like, oh, she probably got banned for something like that, or saying,
Maybe she got a point. Maybe she got, but he started working on candles, I believe. They started doing something out of their house, which is like they were doing like handmade crafts and candles or something like that, and they were selling it on Etsy.
I was going to say, it sounds like,
And they told me the math. It was like, oh, this candle's like $2. We get it on bulk. We do arts and crafts with it or something like that, and we sell it for
bro,
50.
bro, hold on, hold on. I
Yeah.
actually know somebody that was putting stickers on blender bottles, like customizing like a blender bottle thing,
Mhm.
and they made a freaking boatload for
No
like when
way.
Amazon like drop shipping was such a big thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, but like you literally just reminded me of that. I was like, literally the like most niche thing you could possibly think of. Oh, I'd like to have my logo on this blender bottle because everyone's using it, but I want mine. How do I know it's mine? Right. Okay. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what they did. They just took candles, $2 a piece, and they were like basic candles. So they found someone, a manufacturer, gets it straight from there. They put it in their house. It was in their house. I remember training them once. No, not training them. I was
They're in the
training.
boxes.
I used to train them, but I used to train their kids too because they were softball kids.
Yeah.
Um, I remember now. So I walked in the house and their like living room was just these like boxes of candles. I'm like, what are you guys doing? It's like, well, remember he was kind of like laid off or whatever. Well, he started working on this and now it's making a profit. And they were making bank. And I was like, what the fudge? Like, that's crazy. So I guess like just bring it back on the earth thing, like financial occupational, like you can always find a way again, urgency, like
Mhm.
find a way to increase your finances. Um,
Yeah.
and it may be different than how you're doing it now. Maybe you have a certain 9 to 5, but maybe you have a hobby or like a type of job that the world likes or needs. Like you said, the blender bottle thing or like this candle thing.
Yeah.
And dude, it can make you bank. You never know. You never know if you're not trying to to make it happen, right? So
No, yeah, and I think, the creation of one, like that expectation of the job, right? Like, I mean, we both have two, and both of them piggyback off one another, right? And it promotes a different level of like intellectual health and like our own occupational health as well, because we're learning because it's almost forced when it comes to being in our practices, right? But then when it comes to working with people, we kind of are like, you know what, like how much does that stuff matter at times with where you're at? Do you need to go look at those things deeper? And we can give them that honest critique right on the spot based on like their symptoms, right? and
yeah.
and then like, hey, like, by the way, if you need that help, we can get you to the right people,
Like
right?
I'll use an example. I get this question a lot. Not question, but like from this one client. And me and my physician kind of go like, dude, you're way into the weeds. I couldn't even answer some of them. And I think my doctor was like, dude, this is way too deep, like way too deep. There's this doctor, Dr. Gundry, and I know you know
Yeah.
this doctor, and he has this book. It's like the lecithin fallacy or like the lecithin study, which basically means for some people, yes, you need to avoid beans and you need to avoid like lecithins in your food, which is like certain like found in certain spices and like beans. Okay, we know that. All right, cool. Like figure that out. But this guy is selling it as like end all be all. And in the book, there's like a very, very, very nuanced one ingredient. And I'm like, I I mean, I read the book. I just don't know what you're talking about. And he asks, like, he gives me this detailed thing. He's like, what do you think I'm supposed to do? And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like this is way too like I was like, this is way too esoteric. Like this is like
Yeah.
talking about one thing. Um, have you hit your workout today? Have you hydrated? Did you go to sleep? If you didn't even do those things, like what are we talking about? Like what are you talking
It's again, I mean, we probably both have done this, and that's why we like trying to educate on nutrition to our clients and not just give them just the plan alone.
Yeah,
Is a result that like you can get too far into the weeds, and it's not giving you any sense of peace or security, thinking like, oh my god, every food has a sunflower lecithin or whatever it is, right? Like that you're trying to avoid, like you said.
yeah.
Being dogmatic on anything is definitely not the right approach, because then when you create an over restriction due to
Get a
some
little too neurotic.
oversimplification, yeah, you just never get to that next step. And again, like, what's the best way of going about it? The more whole natural foods that you're working in on a daily basis, the better. You know,
Yeah,
just pay attention to your eating habits when you go and try to mow down a protein bar. You're like,
yeah,
that was delicious, but I need more,
yeah,
right? You go eat a steak, right? You feel better because
yeah.
it has more, it takes more time to eat it, and it's the chewing and all those other components to it. But um,
Let's
I
talk
think,
about this last one. I don't
yeah,
want to. I think we'll just talk about these, and we could talk about these segments another time. I
yeah,
think we're
yeah, yeah.
kind of
That's
coming
it.
up on an
I was
hour
trying to
here.
message you in the chat, but I don't know if it worked.
No, I got it. I think
Yeah,
we'll
yeah, yeah,
finish up here and
yeah, yeah. And then we
guys, the last one for wellness. I think there was 10. I think we labeled that like 7, but we put financial and occupational together. We did talk about nutrition a lot with environmental, spiritual, emotional, social, physical, and mental. The last one is purposeful. Um, this is a good one. And for those listening, I'm going to use one rule. I think most people might know this one as Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs basically states at the bottom, you have your security, right? You have shelter. Above that is like food. Above that is like a spouse or like a healthy relationship, and then like job or something like that. And then at the end, it's like you find your why, right?
Yeah.
I think this is a great way to think about it. I think a lot of people, maybe there's a book called like Start with Why. What's your purpose? I'm gonna be honest, I think it's a bit of both. Sometimes you can't really understand and fully delve out your purpose in life until you have a good base of finances, you have a good base with your physical health, good base with your relationships, and a good base with experiences in your life. Sometimes you can't start out. That's why you have to experiment with a lot of things. Because for me, I thought my why was like, I'm always going to do this one thing. I'm always going to do this one thing. And then you come to realize, like, you're like, never mind. I don't want to just do that one thing. I want to have a bigger mission in life because you start seeing the view a little bit bigger and it gets bigger and bigger every year you grow older. I mean, I'm only 29 in 2 weeks, so I only have 29 years of wisdom, which, to be quite honest, I didn't even know my purpose until I was probably like 5 minutes ago. So,
Yeah.
so with that being said, I think purpose is very situational each person, and it
Yeah.
gets more, it gets more, it gets widened as a view for every experience that you gain. And I don't think you can always find your purpose right away in life. I mean, I got lucky. I was in the field of kinesiology, in the field of like serving others through fitness, nutrition, longevity. And I've been doing that since I was 18 because I had that calling. But the purpose that I had before, maybe the mission, the way it was parlayed in the world was different. Like I was just like a personal trainer, or like I was just, I don't know, doing things. Now it's beyond that. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Marcos?
Plain and simple, man, we need a purpose. And those feelings, to tie back to the opening part of this conversation, which made us make a turn on this segment today, uh,
Yeah.
was that depression and anxiety will run rampant when our sense of purpose is lost. And I've experienced this with watching my wife go through behaviors during COVID. And
Mhm.
she was like, I am so fucking miserable because I have nothing to do. And I was like, like, well, what does your purpose want to be? And that's when she made a shift from a job that technically she still has, right? As a cocktail waitress into, and again, like that was great for financial, it was great for like an occupation.
Served her at her that
It served
time.
her at that time, but then there were certain things in that occupation that she felt that was deleterious to her health, like being around smoke all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and so she's like, what do I actually want to do? When am I going to take the leap? Right. And again, like that was to her purpose then was like something that she wants to like go wake up and do on a regular basis. Right. I think the emotional health was there because it's like we have a strong structured family at that point. So the purpose of like things emotionally was there. But with purpose, it is sometimes job, but it's also like a hobby too, could potentially
Yeah.
be right. Because you might like disassociating the 2 things.
You
I've
could, yeah.
been very passionate about, like, teaching in general, whether it's math or nutrition, like, I really feel passionate about that thing, but I almost wonder at this point, going back to the sunken cost fallacy, if I've spent so much time in this thing for the last 10 years that I'm not I don't know if I'm willing to maybe make a leap into something else that I might be better suited for occupationally, right? And
Yeah.
again, going back to financially, does it make sense for me to change occupations at this time? So I'm dealing with all these mental and emotional things as a result of the fact that I don't know what that is. Because again, my purpose is like, it would be nice to not like dealing with things emotionally. Like I only have so much bandwidth for people. And, because
That's a
I
great way of saying it.
well, I do. I only have so much bandwidth when it comes to empathy because it's draining on the individual that's also trying to be the conduit of that thing, right? To give them and help them find purpose. And for us, it's always nutrition and training, right? But I need to find my purpose and what to do with nutrition and training. And yeah, so like for me, dude, I'm not even gonna lie. On the way here, someone cold DM'd me, which is the equivalent of a cold call, like being like, hey, like I like your Instagram page and the message that you're promoting. Would you be interested in hearing me out for a position of like doing like financial wellness and financial literacy? I was like, it's funny because I had been talking about this with some people here recently, and I was like, not gonna lie, but if it's a part-time gig and it can make a little extra side skrilla, I'm all about it.
Sure.
You know what? And again, too, like I just want to learn. I've always wanted to help
Yeah,
people.
you're willing to learn, bring
Yeah,
up your skill sets.
yeah.
Finance
So
is a big place. Like, come on.
yeah, and so it's like, well, this person again. I went and I did some digging, some R&D. 2 seconds of looking at how many followers she had and what her messages were, and I was like, okay, it seems like it's a genuine thing. Then she sent me an audio message. I sent one back. I was like, all right, you never know. Again, finding that niche or that thing is always a matter of just being open to looking for potential new things.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm going to leaving any jobs anytime soon, but I am willing to take a step and see what those things are at this point because it might be the right amount of financial support, right? It might actually clear up all these other elements of health because I can focus on one thing and help people. But again, too, it's not to this level of uh, I guess empathetic drive or whatever you want to call it. That is, it really, it's not that it's burdensome, but it like, I don't want to care more than other people, right? I can't, as a health coach, care more about your health than you, the individual.
That's a hard bargain because it's like I believe in so many people sometimes, right? And it's like I believe in you more than they believe in themselves sometimes, and
I'm
it's
just like,
tough, dude.
I'm like, just trust, learn to love the process. We're all hearing the same thing.
I think the
Again,
one thing that I think that people don't believe in themselves just because I don't think they believe that purpose for themselves, or they believe the outcome just because they've been spoon fed, or they purposely live their life in a way that they just don't know how their life would look like at their optimal self. At like, let's just say because we talk about healthier, like weight loss, for example. At this point in my life, I'm just like I've seen and coached so many people to lose over 100 pounds that I'm just like every time someone goes like, dude, I need to lose 100 pounds, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go ahead. This is how you do it. And they're
yeah,
like, is that easy? I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, like I've done this. Like I've helped at least 20 people lose over 100 pounds now. I'm like, yeah, it's
yeah.
like I've just seen it so many times.
Uh-huh. And
It's
every step around the way, you're creating new ways of handling your own health and being able to be that person who's communicating something that again is helping them fill that current need. And man, oh man, like purpose is, I mean, I would say this for the last one because again, this could be the pit of despair because if you do not feel like you're doing something that is in fact purposeful, the toll it takes on all the other elements of health, you know is
mhm.
is profound. Again,
It is.
leads to that potential depressive state, leads to the like longing for something different. Oh, why not me? Why am I not like that person on that I
Yeah,
follow, that influencer? I could do that. Um, and again, too, it's like, but what are you then doing with purpose to help you get there?
it
And
is.
I was manifesting this on our drive because obviously we pushed our start time back a little bit today. And I'm listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm like, I truly believe at some point in time, something is going to happen with one of us two that we're going to be on a stage like that. Maybe not necessarily his, but there will be a stage. And why is that so important? Because we're just in here right now taking practice reps. We're
Yeah, it's just
trying,
ninja reps. No one knows what's going on. We're just doing things, just
we're
making it
doing
happen.
it, and hey, you may only be getting X amount of views right now. And we're doing this with the intention of this being purposeful to help us with communication skills. And
Yeah,
hopefully, like you said, hey, I'm going to go and do some thumbnail stuff. I'm going to do these other components and like learn this other skill. And it's fun, right? Again, like we're just finding new ways to have fun outside of like all the other stuff. So
yeah,
it's
it's
pretty
good.
cool.
I want to leave the audience with one thing, and this is from one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday. There's a book. It's called "The Obstacle Is the Way." The biggest lesson I've ever read from that book, and I know you're reading it.
No, I'm on this one
Um,
right
the ego is the
here.
enemy. Oh,
No,
this one.
I already
So I
finished
have that book. Let me show you something. Let me show you something.
it.
This right here from my mentor, big business guy, got me a signed Ryan Holiday book.
Oh, nice.
How epic was that? It was one of the best Christmas gifts I've ever got. It's right here on my shelf, and I look at it every day.
Meanwhile, mine has a $3 off at Barnes and
$3
Noble.
off at Barnes and Noble. Sorry, not to ego stroke there, but Ryan Holiday has another book, and I think this was his like banger breakout New York Times best-selling book. The Obstacle Is the Way. I'm not gonna. The title tells itself, and he repeats that whole concept through the book, through stories and anecdotes. One story that resonated with me for a very long time. I used to work at a gym, and I used to be a mentee of somebody who owned a gym in SoCal,
Yeah.
successful world-class gym, many transformations, successful in multiple ways. I had learned, got many certifications there and helped so many people. However, there was one concept there. You were helping someone make their dream. And I know this sounds weird, but to find your purpose, sometimes you have to be what we call the anthem bulo. And this means you're the path maker. So back in the day, in the Roman times, there was a person that went out up front. They had the sword, they had the plow, they had to plow through the forest, the jungle, for the emperor in the back. And sometimes to help others find their path, you have to build a path for them. But one day, you would find your own path. I leave that for the listeners here. Like, be the path maker. Sometimes you have to be a path maker for others for a certain time of your life before you realize your own path. And in doing so, you'll find your purpose. And that's what I had to do. I know Marcos has had to do that, where you had to work for someone else that was chasing their dream. But in doing so, you learn, oh,
Yeah.
this is how you would do it. Let me find and see if I can craft my own. And I hope the listeners get something from this big call today, especially as we were opening, we're talking about depression and all that. So hopefully this kind of helped.
No, man, I like that. That's a great way to end this. I mean, path maker. Sometimes you need to start as being the path maker for somebody else's goals and dreams, so that you will then understand that you too will then have somebody that will help pave your way. And not gonna lie, it took me a long time to realize that I was doing that for somebody else. Happens to be a pretty prominent figure in this industry. You might know him.
I might.
Yeah. And it all started as doing little whiteboard workshops with a group of 10 or so people inside of a hotel room in the Aria. I
Yeah.
didn't know what the hell we were doing. He obviously saw a greater vision. I now know what I see and what I want to try to do for people. Right. And it's cool. It's 10 plus years in the making now. And that's fine. There's no timeline for feeling a certain way or creating optimized health. But so long as you're finding your path slowly but surely, enjoying the journey, enjoying the process, well, if you find that love for that thing, I'll be damned if you don't get the results that you are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We'll leave it there. Damn.
man,
Solid, man. This one is a solid one. I hope you guys, I'm going to have to listen to this one. I don't like listening to myself often, but I think I have to listen.
you should. It's a good skill, man. I listen to all of our podcasts afterwards to hear about, is there too many ums? Is there too many this, like, bop? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
again, to quote your favorite guy, Jordan Peterson, how are you going to improve on those skills
Yes,
if you're
sir.
not paying attention and analyzing yourself?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
am I bringing too much energy? Is it not enough? What's the right thing? Is it the right medium? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to it, and it's actually a really cool thing. And to go back to our art or coaching person, Brett Bartholomew, when we were working with him, they're like, that's part of what they were going to make you do to help you improve that. So I'm like, let me just start that. I want to get back to actually working with them at some point, because
Yeah.
this is a really crucial skill in this day and age, right? Being able to communicate and have a voice and be unique in the sense that, like, look, anything and everything is out there online. Like, we could reiterate everything and just Google
Dude, there's
something.
Chat GPT. How do you lose weight? There you go.
Yeah, build me a meal plan, Chat GPT, and
There you go.
yeah,
And it's pretty
I
good,
mean,
probably.
and that's the thing is, like, the thing that it can't do is write with voice.
Yeah.
And that is a really important thing. Even when I crafted an email that I'm like holding myself accountable to for my email blast for the patients, right? I have to put my voice in it. I know they may not want to listen to me when I do a Loom video. All right, fine. You guys have all proven that. I get it. You don't have time to listen to somebody talk about something for 4 minutes. Like, damn, if you watch it at twice the speed, it only takes 2.
Thanks too.
um,
Some of those Loom videos, I was listening to a Loom video from somebody. It was
yeah,
a 2-minute video, but it was one of the most profound videos I've ever heard. And I'll keep it to myself, but it was like, yep, I'm holding on to this one.
yeah, we'll come back to that. We put a note somewhere so we can get back to that. But like, that's the thing is, like, these. I lost my train of thought. Again, like, the idea of everything here, and creating the things that you like actually enjoy. Hey, I mean, what started this, like, or 8 episodes in at this point, literally was just like, hey, we're gonna do this next Tuesday. All right, cool. What's that gonna look like? Can we just make 52 happen? Do we have shit to talk about? I don't know.
We do.
figure it out. We do. We have ideas. We have concepts. We have something that we just want to give back. We want people to
Yeah.
listen, and hopefully they find it, funny, witty, humorous, whatever it is. Like, obviously we'll find our voice. We'll continue to find the voice and the path that actually people will resonate with. But you know what, man, at the end of the day, like, I appreciate all the stuff that you've helped usher in the last couple of weeks as we've been embarking on this project. And I think it's actually helped me with my own health pathway, because it's giving me more purpose in all other areas. It's helping me exercise things in my mind and in my brain and in my toolbox that I don't have refined enough yet. And that's growth. And when you have growth, you have health. So
Yeah.
always stay learning is what I've really come to love in the last
No,
couple weeks.
I love it, man. I think to speak upon something with dignity and to speak upon something with conviction and maybe a little bit of authority, you have to have done it yourself. Like, we can't talk about these topics if we don't know a thing or two about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not fiddle farting around with the audience when we're telling them, like, hey, this is the stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis. And, we bring our own insights into it. And so I really appreciate, everything that we've been doing, you've been doing. Just this whole podcast is a great way of parlaying the message that we do with our day-to-day work and just kind of expressing it in a different way. And I hope that the listener got something out of this one. This is such a, we were just talking, and man, the podcast just took its own
Look, it's
turn.
life.
So
Sometimes that
what it
happens.
is. So hopefully y'all can, in my opinion, this is probably one of my favorites. That I always say that, but like, this is probably my favorite one.
Every week you're like, I'm excited about today, and then afterwards, like, dude, I feel like that was the best one yet.
I felt like that was the best one. So I love it. I love the raw emotion I'm getting from it. I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude or spiritual health at the moment.
Love it, man. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate y'all. Sorry we had to break this up into 2 parts, but obviously it was a little bit longer. We didn't want you guys to not be engaged long enough to listen to it all, and then we'll get back to adding those segments next week. So, all right, peace.
Peace.